I hate to do this. I hate to be this guy. But for as much as I love to discuss the Buffalo Bills, everybody that knows me or that has followed this show for the last X amount of years knows that I am a diehard Boston Red Sox fan. The majority of that does come from, quote unquote, inheriting that fandom from my grandfather, who I was very close with growing up until his passing in 2008. Obviously, I still maintain a close, bond with him in memory in the many years since his passing in 2008. And one of the ways that I maintain that bond, maintain those memories, is through my fandom of the Boston Red Sox, largely in tribute to my grandfather. So that is why I'm a Red Sox fan. To make it simple, and plain and simple, however you want to look at it, that is why I'm a Red Sox fan. And right now, in the aftermath of last night's game, there is no worse time to be a fan of the Boston Red Sox. And I say that with sheer shame that I even strung that sentence together just now. I don't want to admit that, but as of this point, I've never been more ashamed to be a fan of the Boston Red Sox. And yes, it can be tough being a fan of the Boston Red Sox. I have lived through what you could say are the glory years of being a Boston Red Sox fan. My grandfather lived 73 years on this earth. He got to see 2 World Series championships. I, on the other hand, by the time I was 26, 27, I saw 4 World Series championships to my grandfather's 2. The last World Series that my grandpa got to watch in full was the 2007 World Series championship, where the Red Sox did defeat the Colorado Rockies in 4 games, sweeping the Rockies and winning their second World Series title in 3 years. 04, 07, 2004 was a really magical year for obvious reasons. Coming back 3-0, down 3-0, I should say, at the hands of their arch rival, the New York Yankees, in the 2004 ALCS. 2007 they win, 2013 they win, 2018 they win. And the standard of excellence, the standard of being a competitive team was much higher then, I feel, than what it is right here, right now. And that is why I have to title the show today Roasting the Red Sox, because how else do you put this in any way, shape, or form other than roasting the Red Sox? You have to roast the Red Sox based on what we've seen over the course of the last month or so from the Boston Red Sox. One of, if not the, worst team in the major leagues as it stands within the last, 4 to 5 weeks. Last night's game was the worst loss in the history of the Boston Red Sox. And when those statements are made, history, right? In any sport like baseball, when you outdo history in baseball, the worst loss in the history of the club, the Boston Red Sox go back to the early 1900s. It's 2022. So it's literally the worst loss in 122 or 123 years that the Red Sox have been in existence within the city of Boston. And last night's game was the worst loss, the most runs that they have allowed in a single game in club history, losing 28-5 against the Toronto Blue Jays. And being from Buffalo, I know that Toronto Blue Jays team pretty damn well, being that Buffalo, the Buffalo Bisons, that is, are the AAA affiliate, of course, for the Toronto Blue Jays. Toronto is far better than what their record has indicated thus far this season. I would go as far to say that they're one of the more underachieving teams in the major leagues. And the fact that they did put up 28 runs on the Red Sox, while it being a shock, it's not a shock that Toronto can score runs. They should be able to score runs. They should have been able to score runs all season long. Unfortunately, it's better late than never in terms of the Blue Jays. But it seems as if they have underachieved. And maybe this second half of the season will bring great things for the Blue Jays. But the moment in the game that really I can't even seem to put it into words, but the moment in the game that really blew past my mind, went completely, just caused my mind to just explode. There's a moment in the game when Romeo Tapia is up to bat. You got the bases loaded. Romeo Tapia hits a pop fly to center field, and Romeo Tapia, slams his bat in the dirt thinking it's an out. Man, I missed that opportunity, right? Popped it up, missed that opportunity, and didn't drive in any runs with this golden opportunity with bases loaded. With the bases loaded, I should say. And he pops it up to Jarren Duran, who is this highly touted prospect for the Boston Red Sox that gets called up from AA to AAA to finally being called up once again, as he's flirted with being called up from AAA Worcester to MLB Boston, of course. And he watches the ball floats right over his head, far beyond his head, about 20 feet back behind him, realizes the ball drops off the center field portion of the Green Monster, center field wall, if you will, of Fenway, and he doesn't run after the ball. Alex Verdugo from left field runs behind Jarren Duran, slides over the dirt to get the ball out of his hand, get it as quick as he can, and get it into the infield and try to throw out the runner. Romeo Tapia did something in that game last night that I can't remember the last time we saw it. I know they said it's the first time since 2017 that a player achieves an inside the park grand slam. An inside the park grand slam. That is a true rarity in this day and age of an inside the park grand slam. It happened. And not only did it happened with Nathan Eovaldi, who had allowed those three runners to reach the bases. He gets yanked out of the game. So those 4 runs are charged to Nathan Eovaldi's 9 in total earned runs that were allowed during the start. And Nathan Eovaldi, he is a big game pitcher. He is largely the reason why the Red Sox were able to come away with the 2018 World Series title, as well as Chris Sale. But both Eovaldi and Sale have been in and out of the lineup due to injury. Sale was out all the way from April, May, June, July. Comes back a start, does pretty well. Comes back another start, takes a line drive to the pitching hand and breaks his pinky. He's out for the next 4 to 6 weeks. Nate Eovaldi comes back from the IL with an injury. I can't remember the injury at the time, at this current moment, but Nate Eovaldi comes back from an injury, and he has pitched horribly since returning. You add in the fact that these are the 2 best pitchers that Boston has to offer. So all the while Chris Sale was out, who was stepping up? Nick Pivetta. Nick Pivetta has had a great season for the Red Sox. He's gone beyond expectations. But the pitching largely for the Boston Red Sox is the worst pitching staff in total. I'm talking about starting rotation. I'm talking about bullpen. The worst by a wide margin. And I say that because there are games where the Red Sox have been winning or the Red Sox have been playing close, and the Red Sox turn their starter into the bullpen. They bring their starter out of the game, put a reliever in the game, turning their game into the hands of the bullpen, and yet it's worse. It decreases their chances of winning a game when you go to the bullpen dramatically because the bullpen is just so bad. They don't have a true closer. They go into the season with Matt Barnes as the closer. They don't have a closer. And Tanner Houck, who will not get vaccinated, is their closer, and that means Tanner Houck won't pitch in Toronto. And obviously that's a huge deal. The Toronto Blue Jays are not only a much better team than they have been in previous seasons, but the Toronto Blue Jays are a divisional opponent. But this game, worse than ever, the worst part about this game, outside of the score, outside of the fact that it happened, was it happened at Fenway Park in Boston, Massachusetts. Fenway, America's most beloved ballpark, the oldest ballpark, the best ballpark in the world, in front of your home fans. And the Red Sox have suffered quite a few losses at the hands of the opposition at home. Right now, the Red Sox are 23 and 21 for the season at home, and they're 25 and 25 on the road. Right now, the Red Sox are 48 and 46, down 16 and a half games to the New York Yankees, who have a 65 and 30 record, a 37 and 12 home record, a 28 and 18 away record, and the best record in Major League Baseball. So the chances that the Red Sox are going to catch the Yankees, I would say, despite it being July, are virtually impossible. The Red Sox are actually just simply playing for the wild card. And I don't think that is even in the cards. If I were a betting man, which on occasion I bet on the fights, you guys know that, I put parlays together. But if I were a betting man, I would bet that the Red Sox don't even make the playoffs as it stands currently. They've lost 3 straight. They're 3-7 in their last 10. They have the highest amount of runs scored in terms of the pecking order outside of Toronto in this wild card race featuring the Cleveland Guardians, the Seattle Mariners, and the Tampa Bay Rays. But they have by far the most runs allowed. They are the worst pitching unit, pitching staff in baseball right now, in the entire major leagues. So I look at it like this. What team has allowed more runs than the Red Sox during this season? What team has done that? At 440 runs allowed, the only team that has allowed more runs, you got the Rockies, you got the Cubs, you got the Cincinnati Reds. And those are 3 of the worst teams in the game. Where I sit as a Red Sox fan, and the reason why I talked about the glory of '04, the All right, so I had some technical difficulties, but hopping back on here, sorry about that. So, um, as far as runs allowed and runs scored, um, the runs scored department, you have Devers, you have Bogarts, you have two solid players. This is my next talking point. You have two solid players that I believe are two of the best players that the Red Sox have developed in a long, long time. I'm talking developed, meaning from drafting the player to being in the conversation as one of the best players at his position. And you have players in Bogarts, Xander Bogarts that is, and Rafael Devers that are cornerstone players at important positions. Shortstop and third, shoring up the middle infield is a key cog in any lineup for any team. And when you can do that, kill two birds with one stone, so to speak, where both guys are interchangeable. You could put Devers at first, you could put Devers at third, you could put Xander at short, and leave him at short and know that you have a gold glove caliber shortstop as well as two players that can hit 300 or above, at least 280 or above on a bad year for either one of these guys. And all the issues that the Red Sox have had, as I mentioned, the pitching has been a horrendous season for pitchers on this team. Nate Eovaldi is a guy that I really like. Chris Sale is a guy that I really like. But these guys have not been able to stay healthy. When they have returned from injury, they're nowhere near what they were before. And that's a huge problem. So the pitching is necessary to discuss in terms of how bad it is, because without a solid pitching rotation, you're dead to rights. You stand no chance as far as competing at a high level year in, year out. If your pitching is lackluster, you're not going to make it. You're just not going to make it. And this team is trending massively in the wrong direction. And that's what's so frustrating. I talked to a lot of fans, on the message boards, on the Twitter, Facebook scene, all that stuff, social media wise. The part that really ticks me off about the Red Sox right now is like that standard in 2004, 2007, 2013, and 2018. That standard of winning is gone in the span of 3-4 years. The team is completely different. The players that were a part of the team that are still there, JD, Xander, Devers, those guys are still great. JD in the home run department has had a little bit of a down year. But those guys are phenomenal in terms of what they bring to the table. And yet they're being the scapegoats by the national media in terms of, are we going to bring these players back? Are we going to trade these players away? The trade deadline is on August 2nd, I believe. And if any of these players are either gone or traded, it's a massive, massive mistake. That will set the Red Sox back 5 steps back rather than 4 steps forward. The Red Sox keep these 3 players, especially I'd say Devers and Bogarts. They have something to build around. Getting rid of that, trading that away, is only going to hurt their chances moving forward at being a competitive team. And let's face it, they're going up against the most competitive team 20 times a year in the New York Yankees. The Yankees are trending upward finally, and what took them a long time to get back to being a competitive unit. And the Red Sox, all the while, since 2018, have continued to make their team worse and worse and worse, year in and year out. And I hate to say those things. I don't want to say those things, especially about the Yankees being a unit, a competitive unit. But you got to eat some crow. You got to acknowledge what the situation is. And as far as what happened last night, 28-5, as far as what happened with Jarren Duran, if I were Alex Cora, if I were Chaim Bloom, the GM, the president of the Boston Red Sox, I would have sent Jarren Duran down to AAA, maybe even AA after the game. How could you excuse or reward by giving Jarren Duran a spot on this team that anyone would die to play for? How could you excuse that by allowing him to play that position, center field, for the Boston Red Sox yet again, after that ball went over his head and he didn't even flinch. He didn't even blink as far as going after it. You gotta go after that ball. And Jarren Duran acted like he didn't even care. Furthermore, after a game like that, where the Red Sox were completely outmatched, outmotivated, outwilled, the discussion for Alex Cora being on the hot seat is warranted, is worthy. I don't want to hear, oh, well, Alex Cora helped the Red Sox win in 2018. Sure he did. He also put himself in the midst of a cheating scandal, and he also returned and got the opportunity to get his job back, and the Red Sox have not been the same since. So if this team continues to flounder, if this team continues to lose and lose royally, then you have to question whether or not Alex Cora is a manager that the Red Sox are actually, quote-unquote, playing for. If the players don't want to play for the manager, that manager is dead to rights. That manager has no legs to stand on. And that manager is as good as gone, is not worthy of holding that spot. The question then becomes, anytime you talk about a manager coming or going, what do you do as far as replacing him? You can't just talk about firing someone without having an idea on who to replace him with. Sometimes teams fire a manager and they hire a worse manager as the replacement. The Red Sox need to hit the ground running as far as if they do go down this path of letting Cora go. Do I think they will? No, but you got July, August, September. If this gets worse and worse and worse like it's trending right now, Alex Cora could be on the hot seat again. And that should change things in a major, major way. I know the players enjoy Cora. I know that when he was suspended for a season, guys like Nate Eovaldi and JD Martinez talked about how pivotal a manager he was to their success. When I watch that press conference after the 28-5 loss, and I hear things like, oh, the players were just as frustrated about Duran, players talked about it, I feel like there isn't really much accountability, quote-unquote leadership from the top, meaning the manager. The manager is not necessarily holding the players accountable in the ways that they need to be. And if you're talking about how they can get better, where can they go from here? If you don't extend Rafael Devers, if you don't extend Xander Bogaerts, we got real problems in Boston. We got real problems for the Red Sox, real problems moving forward as a competitive team. Because letting those guys walk, letting those guys play for other teams would be a massive, massive mistake. Just like in New York with Aaron Judge, if the Yankees can't get Judge's contract done, that too would be a massive, massive mistake for the New York Yankees. People say, well, Judge got hurt a few years and he's really only had 2 good years out of 5 or 6? Well, Aaron Judge is trending upward. He's reaching the prime of his career. Rafael Devers isn't even close to his prime yet, and he's turned in some of the greatest seasons at the third base position for the Red Sox in franchise club history. Xander Bogaerts, year in, year out, rock steady player. You know what you're going to get out of him. He's consistent, ready, willing, and able to be great. You let guys like that go, you make your bed and you lay in it. You deserve to be where you are, which would be trending downward. I don't want to see that happen for my team that I root for, and I know you guys don't either. All the Red Sox Nation members out there that are tuning into the show, I appreciate it. I'll always appreciate I always appreciate the support, I should say. So I feel like if I were a betting man right now, the Red Sox won't make the playoffs. I've been asked that question. I'm going to answer that question right here. I just did. I don't think they're going to make the playoffs. And that is a real shame because the standard for excellence has to be high every single season. You have a fan base that lives and breathes the Boston Red Sox. And if the standard for excellence is changing, if Chaim Bloom wants to change the standard of excellence from the Boston Red Sox to more of a Tampa Bay Rays standard of excellence, we got some real problems because you know it and I know it. The two fan bases that are starved for a winner, that want a competitive championship contender every single season, are the Boston Red Sox and the New York Yankees. And the one thing that I will always respect about the Yankees, and I'm saying this as a Red Sox fan, is that the Yankees consistently attempt to win a championship every single season. I question their ethics in doing so. I question the moves in terms of the certain players they pick up rather than picking up other players. That's another topic for another day, but the Yankees consistently try to win championships each and every season. Whereas the Red Sox under Chaim Bloom are consistently trying to maintain their budget. And no one wants to hear that crap if you're a Boston Red Sox fan. You know the Red Sox got money. You know the Red Sox have deep pockets. Use the money. Spend the money. Create a winner. Build a winner. That's it. That's not a lot to ask for. And Chaim Bloom says, well, we don't want to make bad contracts. Well, we don't care if it's a bad contract. We want to see you guys try to remain competitive. That's my expectation every single year for the Red Sox is that they will remain competitive. And losing 28-5 is not competitive. Losing 14-1, 13-2, being outscored essentially 50-10 in their last 3-4 games. That's not competitive. And you look at each team in the major leagues. I love to look at each team in the major leagues and look at like their future. Like how does their future forecast? How does their future project? And the Red Sox future is so bleak in terms of prospects, in terms of highly touted prospects that will provide longevity. I see very few and far between. Tristan Cassis is one of them. I thought Jarren Duran was one of them. I don't know if he wants to be one of those long-term prospects after watching the game last night. Jeter Downs, I like him. I love the fact that they brought in Trevor Story. I've been a huge Trevor Story fan, dating back to obviously his days in Colorado. But do you bring in a Trevor Story only to kick Xander Bogaerts out? If that's the case, then I don't like that move. I bring in Trevor Story to complement Xander Bogaerts at short while Story plays second. That's why I bring in Trevor Story. And if you want to parlay the arrival of Story by jettison Bogaerts, no. Hell no. That's not the way to do it. And if they go down that road, the Red Sox fans have every right to be ticked off. And I'm including myself in that. Jason Groom was foreseen as a highly touted pitching prospect. I believe right now he's in Double-A Portland. What is going on with the development of these players? What is going on with the lack of development that these players have shown? And what is going on with this team? I mean, I think I narrowed it down pretty good, but I think there's a lot of layers to this that we will only see in the months to come. This season will prove where we are at, good or bad. And you thought trading Mookie Betts to the Dodgers was bad. At least you got a return for Mookie Betts, whether people liked it or loved it or hated it. You got something for a player of Mookie Betts' caliber. If they don't get something for Bogaerts, if they don't get something for Devers, wow, they are setting themselves back even further. He's right around the 15, 16, 17-minute mark, maybe the 12-minute mark, 12 minutes to 15-minute mark. There was just radio silence, and you could see just the background of my Bills background when I have guests on, but I will obviously try to edit that as best as I can, and have you guys, enjoy the show. Hopefully you guys do.